Um, this is a short video on on the Guardian and how, unfortunately, now I think it's just lost a lot of credibility. I don't know how much credibility it had really, but just reading its reporting of the war in Ukraine, and it's just propaganda. Now, I just want to put here that I'm interested in really knowing what's happening in Ukraine, like the actual facts. And so I'd like to go to a newspaper and try to read as unbiased an account of what's happening as possible. But what you have in The Guardian is just they've clearly chosen to support Ukraine. Maybe it's fair enough. The people at The Guardian want to support Ukraine. But then they are taking a side in the war. They are actively playing a part in the war effort. They are not a news outlet now. They are a propaganda outlet. And maybe that sounds really harsh because you're reading it and you're thinking, it all sounds kind of true, but I keep going back to it, and certain things that I repeatedly see, the figures about Russian casualties being put forward. And who's their source? The Ukrainian army. Now, for 1 minute, I wouldn't believe the Russians about their claims about Ukrainian casualties. I would not believe the Ukrainians about the Russian casualties. I just wouldn't even bother reporting that. It's just, you can't. Just don't report those figures. They're false. So, this is unfortunately the fog of war. And if you want to be an actual, objective source of information, you just have to not report this. At best, maybe you could report, the Russians' figures and the Ukrainian figures side by side, and say the likelihood is the reality is somewhere in between. Also, any information coming from the US, it cannot be trusted. They are, completely embedded in this war. They believe the clear reason why it started, as much as Russia. Russia started it, but without the US's interactions, this war would not have happened. So, and what was the other form? Now, just today I think they were talking about the Azov Battalion, and this is a little bit of kind of almost historical revisionism on the part of the Guardian, because you can go back and look at old articles, and the Guardian has quite a few about the Azov Battalion, and quite good journalism, I believe, there, because a lot of what they say has been corroborated across the internet, and it just shows clear Nazi influence, just rife, camps being held with SS insignias, and Nazi war heroes being held up as Ukrainian national heroes. It's just, in 2014, 15, 16, 17, no question, these newspapers were reporting, in fact, the dangers of these ultra-nationalists. But that was because back then it was politically expedient to do so. There was no enemy that you were against, in a sense. But now, of course, because Russia has used it as part of its propaganda war, as its justification, which, of course, you can't. I don't think there's really a justification for invading a country to kill just one battalion of Nazis. But because Putin has put it in there, the Guardian now must revise its previous position and try to defend the Nazis in the Azov Battalion. And this kind of behaviour, I just find unacceptable from a news source. You're just like all the others now. Just like the BBC, really, which is obviously supporting Britain's geopolitical position, which is anti-Russian, and obviously, the right-wing press more than happy, I think, to go along with whatever they want at the time. So, but the Guardian, I thought, maybe had a shred of decency left, but it doesn't, I'm afraid. And unfortunately, I don't know. This kind of relentless propaganda on both sides, does it achieve peace, or are we just just driving the world further into war by creating these unreachable, crazy, evil enemies on one side, to which we can never find peace. Completely ridiculing any of their strategic or security concerns, painting them as insane. This is not the actions of a world that could find peace. We are playing into a global division that will destroy the world. Maybe not a nuclear holocaust, but it will cause so much conflict and division that the environment will wipe us out before we ever get over it. So I think we should just stop on all sides. People should start calling for peace. The Guardian should start calling for peace, not just one whole side supporting the Ukrainians or supporting the Russians, but realizing that there is problems. Okay, there was problems existing before the invasion, and these needs to be solved. It's going to be nearly impossible now. The Minsk agreements were an excellent way of stopping this, and of course they were rejected, not by Russia but Ukraine. But now we must find peace for the sake of world food security. We must find peace, and if that means humbling ourselves a little bit to realize that Russia does have some points about NATO expansion, or it does have some points about the Crimean Peninsula being strategically vital to its existence, we have to accept them, or we will destroy the world. I look around the world and I just feel like there's children everywhere in positions of power, or at least what is projected is childish. I'm sure there's much more adult people behind the scenes who don't repeat the rubbish that is printed in the newspapers, and who are probably trying to secure peace, and they're looking at it in these very reasonable ways about security and territory and realities and stuff. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. The fog of war has descended